So my name is John, and my wife is back at the table somewhere videotaping, I think. And we've been doing this for quite a while. We had 6 stores. We now have 3. And it's much better having 3 than 6. But been doing this since the 70s. I started out cleaning kennels at a pet store and just loved it and stuck with it. And in 1998, we 1098, that was a long time ago. I'm old. I am on Medicare. Who's on Medicare? Me. We opened up our own stores, or bought stores that I was working for at the time, or reopened them because they had closed. And at 2004, we decided we'd try to do dog only. We were kind of a full line store. Bree has a full line store, and she'll tell you a little bit about that. And been in the industry forever as a full line, meaning we'd carry reptiles, birds, fish, monkeys, you name it. But most of our business was dogs. And in 2004, we decided we'd go dog only. And we tried to figure out, is that okay? Will the public accept that? Will they think we're, trying to make money and all of that? So there wasn't many dog only stores at the time. There was a group in Arizona and a group in Chicago. And other than that, all other stores were full line and had a lot more convenience items. So we did change to dog only. We thought we could really spend time with the breeders, learning their operation, helping them, trying to be better at what we do, answer the questions of what customers were asking, and so we did that. So I'm going to give the mic to Bree, and then she can give it a little introduction of herself too.
Hi guys, Bree Maestas. I think Patty already kind of gave an introduction, but I'm a 4th generation pet store owner. So my great grandfather opened his first pet store in Denver, Colorado. And Dustin, what year was that? 1918. And it's evolved from there. John's going to show a picture here in the slide, and I want you guys to take a look at one of the pictures. It shows puppies for sale on one side of the store. And then the other sign, you can barely see it, says horse meat for sale. And, in 1918, we were feeding puppies horse meat. And I point that out because things have changed. Things have evolved. And that's really what we want to share with you guys today is the evolution of the pet stores, the commercial dog breeding, and just really hope that we can come together as a group that, Patty has always talked to us about this. There's so much we can learn from each other by working together and supporting each other.
I think most of you know me. I'm Marty Greer. I've been in veterinary practice. We celebrated our 40th year and anniversary in business last summer. So 40 years of owning a veterinary clinic, and we had the party for it because you never know if you're going to see 50. So I've been working with breeders since the very beginning. My 2nd year out of veterinary school, I started a practice and started working with breeders, and it's turned out to be just a really phenomenal place to be because my breeder clients are my favorite clients. We get to know them really well. We see them multiple times a week. They're great people to work with. I've learned so much from them. And then about 5 years ago, Revival Animal Health approached me to become part of their business as the director of veterinary services because running 3 practices wasn't enough. I needed a part-time job. So I've had the opportunity to work with breeders on another level there. So it's just been a really great place to be. I think my breeder clients are the best and really appreciate and enjoy what they do. In 1988, we bought our first Pembroke Welsh Corgi and almost immediately became a breeder, not because I started off that way, but sort of by accident. I went to buy a puppy. By the time I left the breeder's house, I'd signed a contract that said I would breed her, that she would get first 2 puppies back. And I walked into the show ring not knowing what I was getting into. And they hand you that first ribbon and yeah, well, you're hooked. So I've been breeding Pembroke Welsh Corgis since '88 and Danish Swedish farm dogs for the last 10 years. So have had a lot of fun involved in dog sports doing those things.
And I've been with Patty. I've been loving the industry. And Patty, I met Patty in 2011, and she asked me to come and speak in 2012. And I kind of like Mark Dunn. I've been at just about every one. I've missed a couple, maybe more than Mark has. Missed a few of them, but I've enjoyed really working with NAI over the past many years. You've heard this kind of stuff. There's a need for dogs, and pet stores fulfill that, a little bit of that need, and not much. This is that. Total, you probably think pet stores, there's a lot of us. There's only about 150 of us left that really are doing any number of puppies across the United States. And total number that come out of pet stores, as best we can tell, is about 150,000 dogs. Now, you know that you see this number, there's a shortage and there's a deficit. We're not making up that deficit. We're not at all close. Just to give you a frame of reference of where we are and who we are. There are 4 places you can get dogs. These are the 4, including you guys. But there's a need for pet stores. There's a need for change. And we want to keep that going. And we're going to talk a little about legislation a little bit later. I think Bree's going to talk a little about that. So we're going to really try to give you a sense of where we came from. And I'm going to be real honest with you and show you some real pictures. And there's many more. Marty's got some that are really rabbit cages. And if you want to see those, I'm sure she'd be happy to show them to you. But we think it's changed an awful lot. This is, you know, like Bree was talking about, you know, it started years ago. I think it was 53 that, who was it saying, how much is that puppy in the window? And dogs were sold in Sears and Macy's and all of that, you know, from the very beginning. So pet stores have been around for a long time. This is what happened in the 80s. Some of you might remember, I do remember, the 2020 expose that really started talking about pet stores and puppy mills. And I'll use the word puppy mill here. I don't use it out in the world. We talk about substandard breeders rather than puppy mills because there's no definition really for a puppy mill. Then Oprah jumped in and she got hooked up with a rescue, and somewhere between 2008, 2009, she ran a really strong expose. And Debbie and I watched that, and we kind of figured out, what do we do? How do we answer the questions? How do we fix what we do, at least the dogs that we're working with, and how do we make it better for our clients? This clicker's not working the best, so I'm going to hit this button. These are the things that she talked about, or the mill talk, or the rescue talked about, and we had to look at that very hard. And were we really that person? Were we really that business? And so I want you to keep these things in mind, and I'm going to read through them real quickly because I think it's important. These are the things that the public believes that a pet store, and still today, they believe that a pet store, how we operate. Care more about profit than welfare. You've heard that. Deplorable conditions in breeding, no vet care at all, overcrowded cages, very small cages, they're in their whole life, never touch grass, outside, even in bad weather, wire floor, rabbit cages, stack cages, urine and feces, odor all over the place, treated like agricultural products. Remember that list, and I might get back to that and show you that, but I'm going to kind of go through what we thought we could change, and we started attacking it and trying to make a difference. Here's a video that talks about what people think about, or definition of puppy mill. Do we have a volume?
That's a big question.
My definition of a puppy mill, for me, a real puppy mill is a person who is raising dogs in conditions that
Can they
do
hear it
not
all?
meet the dog's needs or their interests. They're not only not offering them good welfare conditions, they don't care about them.
There you go.
Welfare conditions. It really is all about money. That's a puppy mill.
Not that there's really one good definition. Just some,
We've been trying to find it.
yeah, there's no
True
real
definition.
true definition.
They're all.
You'll probably get a different answer every time. I mean, well, what I see in my mind when I think puppy mill, these cages upon cages that are dirty, really not clean.
The animals more endangered, in an endangered environment where, they're not really getting exercise, they're really being treated, poorly.
Very, very minimal, if any, vet care.
They may not be, getting the veterinary care that they need.
Poor little old dogs or big dogs, whatever they got, they're just breeding and breeding, breeding, really no human interaction.
They can't move around, they can't engage, they don't have choices about what spaces they utilize. There aren't things that are dynamic that they find enriching to interact with.
This is
I-
Dr.
I don't
Crony.
have a clear understanding of what their definition was. of a
John
puppy
Boland
mill,
used to work
what
for
they-
ASPCA
it was-
and
it
is an
was a
investigator.
Fit for them. It was convenient. They are deceitful. They use terminology and catchphrases in the reports that is catered toward the donors and catered toward the lobbyists, catered toward the wing of government that is sympathetic to their cause. Puppy mill is their term. That's their money raising terminology.
So let's show you some pictures. This is when we started, there were cages and there still are some breeders, although we don't buy from them, that still raise dogs in what we call rabbit cages. And it's a true thing. It was there back about 30 years ago. It's the way it was done in many breeding facilities. And then we moved into what's called double stacks. How many of you have heard of that term or saw that term? Some call it sundowners. The picture on your right, that's Roy Schleybaugh. He was a breeder that we started with, and he had a double stack. Most of the breeders, we came to get to know breeders in northern Indiana, and most of them had double stacks. And so we tried to figure out, how do we change that? And Roy was a great breeder. He bred Shih Tzus, but he had his dogs in these cages. There was an indoor cage and an outdoor cage. You can see the indoor on the bottom and the outdoor on the top. And the dogs never got out. And so we asked them, we'll buy from you, but you have to build an exercise yard. And we did. We built it. Then we said, oh, you got to have a shade tree. And we shared the price of a $799 maple tree so that he could have shade in his exercise yard, because you can't put dogs out in the sun, in the summer. So we decided we needed change, and we kind of went for it, and we tried to figure out, what do we do? There's a nice quote, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. And we've constantly keep trying to do that. So here we are, maybe years later, as we keep going. There's a lot of regulation. USDA, the states have regulation. I'm in Michigan, and the Department of Agriculture, Indiana, BOA, Kansas, Ohio, PACFA in Colorado, Pennsylvania. We've also, on the right side of your screen, you'll see there are breed organizations, and I think Marty will talk a little bit more about that, how she's speaking at some of these. These are just a few of them. MyCaw, Michigan Council for Animal Welfare, ICAW, Indiana Council for Animal Welfare, and MAHA. Bob York is here. And of course, Canine Care Certified. We'll talk a little bit about that. But in the inspections, things happened that we tried to change. One of the things, but there's a lot that's already there. The USDA requires, I don't know if you know, and many of you, that if you ship dogs, you're probably going to have to be USDA licensed. So get to know it. Happy to talk to you about what we deal with on a regular basis. But one thing is a program of veterinary care, and I have some of these in the back, and Marty's been working on some of these, and it's a book. And this is a document written by between you and your veterinarian to say how you take care of your dogs. So if something happens in the middle of the night, they have a recipe, and they have to know this PVC, Program of Veterinary Care, forward and backward. And when the inspector comes in, they're going to drill them on it. What would you do if this happened? Well, according to my veterinarian and my PVC, I do this. And as long as they follow that, then they're going to be fine. If they're not following what the veterinarian told them to do, they're going to get a violation. So that's how the inspections work. I think USDA is tightening their restrictions, and it's really a factor from HSUS pushing the legislators. We lost teachable moments. USDA used to have, and by ask of the breeder community, we asked USDA, could you do teachable moments? There used to be an outcome-based program, and I think we're switching away from that. So we kind of asked them, could you do teachable moments? And if something was in the kennel that maybe just needed to be addressed, that you wouldn't write a violation on it, but you would talk to the breeder and you would explain to them how to take care of it to fix it. But if he had it again, if it was a repeat offense, then he'd get a violation. They took away teachable moments August of last year. We can't even do that. Matter of fact, we're worried that the USDA, because of what this is, how it's written, the USDA will not even be able to come to a conference and talk to us because that would be a teachable moment. That's kind of wrong. You know, USDA should be there to help us, to teach us, to help us get to where we're at. USDA requires an exercise plan. It requires a vet to give an annual physical of every dog from the tip of the nose to the end of the tail. In that physical, they have to look at teeth, and if there's tartar on the teeth, the dogs have to have annual teeth cleaning. They also will do, in that physical, they're going to look for luxating patellas, they're going to listen for heart murmurs. So we're now having the veterinarian sign OFA certificates because they're checking every dog every year. It's required by USDA, by the Animal Welfare Act, that every dog has to have a, full physical once a year. And so we're doing OFA certificates because they're doing that inspection already for some of the soft tissue OFAs. We'll talk a little bit later about OFA's eye clinics that we've sponsored, and AKC's helped us with that. They also have to have their dogs in compatible groups. So I just heard from the inspector, they met with somebody and the inspector said, here's what's going to happen. If you have your dogs, and we want dogs to get out in exercise yards, right? We want dogs to be out of the cages like we saw in the picture, and we're pushing them to do that. And we want them to put dogs together in groups. Dogs can be dogs and they can run in a pack, and it's great. If a dog gets in a fight and somebody gets hurt, they're supposed to document that. And if that happens, the next time the inspector comes in, they will go through their documentation and they will give them a critical. And a critical means you're in trouble. You didn't take care of your dog. And because you are supposed to keep your dog in compatible groups and you allowed these dogs to get together and they had a spat, you're now in trouble and you get a critical violation. And Bree's going to talk about legislation that if you have a critical, that you cannot sell to pet stores. So those kind of things are what we deal with. The annual teeth cleaning is huge. We think it's great. The non-compliance, I talked a little about that. AKC, as of 2012, kind of upgraded their care and conditions and now do a lot more than just paperwork. And so AKC inspects kennels. Breeders that are selling through or selling AKC registered dogs, the local state clubs, state breeder organizations do what's called KMA, and they try to come into the breeder and work peer-to-peer changes. We tried to first retrofit things, and we tried to take that double stack and get to where you had a ramp from the second level down to the ground where we could get the dogs to the grass. I remember looking at that list that Oprah talked about. How do you get dogs out of the cages? Most of the breeders decided, no, I'm not going to do that. They just built a new building. And, this first statement was that they worry about profit over animal care. If some of the breeders have invested over $250,000 in their facility. So I don't think that's worrying about profit over care if they're, working on things. In 2017, we introduced toys to the first ICAW conference, and with me in the pet industry, I can find manufacturers that sell toys that are good for kennels, and so we wanted them to be safe, durable, and disinfectable. If you're going to put toys in a kennel, they better be good. So we did Busybody, we did Jolly Pet, we did Tether Tug, some things that really could give the dog some enrichment. And we talked about enrichment would enhance that dog's productivity, which does get to profitability and all of that, but we had a reason for doing that. We paid bonuses for things that they did. As we asked them to do things, we would give them bonuses. If they had an outdoor exercise yard, we'd give them $25 extra per dog. If they had OFA certificates, we'd give them $10 per certificate. Well, that'll add up if you have, male and female and 5 certificates on each one of them, that adds up. And so they started doing it. And so those are kind of ways that we tried to shape things and make things happen as we went. You can see here's just a first progression of changes, some buildings. Here's another one. If you haven't stopped at the back table and looked at that larger television, there's about 200 shots there, 200 pictures that I loaded on there, that you can see the real transition of where we are today. These, I don't think, are substandard breeders. And this is not what the United States people think where our dogs come from. So we work pretty hard at trying to make sure that the dogs are taken care of. And we have changed. We have changed in a way that's better for the dog. This couldn't have happened 20 years ago. Dogs out running in grass, playing with other dogs, and letting a dog be a dog. And I think that's where I hope you see from our presentation that you see that we've made a difference in our dog's life. And we're trying to do more and more of that as we go, and hope that we can learn more from you guys. We talk about OFA clinics, and that came because of AKC and Stacy Mason. How many know Stacy Mason? She's amazing. And she's all over the place talking and teaching conformation and all of that. There is a magazine called Kennel Spotlight. If you're not getting this, you can come back to the table and I'll give you the number. They're putting in this magazine conformation things and teaching the breeders conformation, talking about health clinics that are out there. It's just a wonderful way for us to try to continually teach breeders other than the conferences that we have on a regular basis. So I hope you're seeing some things. We'll get this through this video, then Bree will talk a little bit about where we're going in the future. I don't know. Is this what you thought when you thought of puppy mills? No. So it's been a joy. It's been heartwarming. We talked to the breeders and they now know their dogs' names. They used to be numbers with a chain collar with a number on it. And now they know their names and they talk about them. You're going to see some pictures of how they're doing behavior training, and things that we never thought commercial breeders would do. So it's really been exciting to see it happen as we go.
Hold on. I'm gonna have to train chairs. All right, so I'm the type of speaker that usually writes out my whole speech and reads it. So I'm not very practiced, and boy, sure hard to follow Cindy. What a great presentation. So consumers want lifelong companions. They want choices, best practices, transparency, and animal welfare. And I often tell people, if Ford was only selling black trucks and nobody wanted a black truck, then Ford would be out of business. So we really had to not only learn, but we had to listen. And controversy, I think the controversy really brought up some, brought up some things for us to really, take a closer look at. What if the welfare issues and consumer expectations could be addressed? What if we could address genetics, behavioral health, veterinarian care, physical health, housing, retirement, and rehoming? And I think, in 2000, when I decided to come back into the business, we kind of sat back and said, can this ever be done? I traveled to several conferences. I started in Kansas. I think one of the biggest defeats that I had was that nobody wanted to share information. Everybody kind of wanted to hold it to themselves because they wanted the next blue ribbon, or they wanted to sell the puppy for the most. And so I kept saying, I got to get out more. I got to get out more. And then also too, what's a puppy mill? I mean, we were still kind of wondering that. My brother came back into the business in 2005, and we both made a commitment, and we said we've got to do better. We can do better, and there has to be mentors or people that are on the same page with us. And so we started touring a lot of kennels. Weren't very happy with what we were seeing. People weren't really open-minded to what we had to say and the thought of change. And so in 2016, I went to a show in Missouri, and Stacy Mason was there. And I remember going over to the booth. She had this big, huge, beautiful booth. And she had a picture book of some really neat pictures of kennels and socializations and outdoor yards. And I said, Stacy, where is this? I want to go here. This is where I want to buy my puppies from. So that was it. I left the conference, and about 2 or 3 months later, Stacy called and she says, there's a group of us that are going to go on a kennel tour, AKC sponsored kennel tour. John was there. And I think there was four van full of us. And she says, Bree, you need to get a place on this bus. So Dustin and I went out there, and this was in October. And we were really amazed and just inspired. You know, finally it felt like what we knew could be done was being done. And I looked over at the gentleman that was predominantly, giving us the tour. And I said, I want to buy dogs from you. I want puppies from here. And he's like, well, you kind of got to get on the list, and I don't really know who you are. And, December, sometimes, as you guys all know, we have more puppies usually in summertime than we do wintertime. It's a natural process. And I said, well, that's okay. I'll buy one puppy at a time. And if that's all I get is one puppy, that's fine, because I know I'll move up that list. Our morals and our values are the same. I have integrity and my checks are good. So then I think it was a 2017, early of 2017, Stacy called me again and she says, Bree, I'm not sure how much you know about canine care and the research that's being done, but there's a symposium at Purdue University. I think you should be there. So I was like, okay, Stacy, I'll be there. As we're sitting at this conference, I started crying. And Stacy turns over to me and she's like, Bree, are you okay? Did you get some bad news? Is everything okay? And I said, you know what, Stacy? I am sitting in a room full of breeders, rescues, shelters, doctors, scientists, AKC, UKC, CKC, USDA inspectors, and we're all in this room talking about the same thing, animal welfare. And how can we address animal welfare? And to hear the science and the research that was going on behind canine care was absolutely amazing to me. Canine care was it was a group of breeders that had approached Purdue University and said, we have all these standards for chickens and cows and all of these different things. We would really like some true science and research behind what we do. And so they started this program. They're addressing physical health, behavioral health, the environment, the breeding life and retirement, and the care and expectations. One of the things that's really dear to my heart, and I remember calling John about this one time, but is the adult rehoming program. The little boy on the left is my great nephew, and maybe a little autistic, hyper focuses on things. And I'd just like to share this story. His mom and dad didn't want a puppy, just really wasn't part of their life. And we started adopting some of the adult dogs. So part of some of the standards, 6 years, 6 litters is basically what it is. The dogs need to be rehomed and retired. And that takes a lot of work. We really have to start, as you guys all know, right? We have to start socializing these puppies at a young age. It's not just, you can't just put a dog in a cage and then socialize it overnight. And it takes generations of this. So anyway, I share the story. My great nephew, he gets a ball chuck it from his dad or from his grandpa, and he's practicing in the yard. He looks over at his grandma and he says, you know, Grandma, I'm going to have to get rid of my Cadillac. And he's 4 years old. And Grandma says, well, why are you going to, he has this little car Cadillac that he drives. He says, well, why are you going to get rid of your Cadillac? He says, well, I'm getting a dog and I'm not going to have time for my Cadillac anymore. So I call the breeder that I wanted to rehome the puppy from, or the adult dog from. And I said, Mark, I said, I'm looking for a dog for my great nephew. And I said, this dog needs to know how to catch a ball. Or you fetch a ball. I said, this young boy, my great nephew, is going out into the yard every day. He doesn't even have the dog yet, and practicing for hours on how he's going to throw this ball for his new dog. So anyway, we get the new dog into the store. Silas has renamed it Summit. And I just got a message from my niece the other day that, thank you so much, because this dog has brought such great joy to their family. And, the dog is really fitting in well, now fetching a ball for Silas, and he goes to softball. And, so like I said, this is dear to my heart, kind of from the beginning to the end, and seeing the type of lives that the adult dogs can live, after their breeding life. Socialization is huge, as we all know. There again, like I said, it starts from the beginning. It starts from generations back. And a lot of these dogs have huge acre yards that they can play in, lots of children. That's one thing we never have to worry about with the adult dogs is they have lots of exposure to children. One of the biggest things I heard yesterday, Temple talking about was, the dogs actually being in a kennel. And that's the biggest thing that I noticed. And what a misconception, right? We get these dogs in and we put them in for temporary, they don't stay at the store long, maybe a week. And we put them in like a 2x4 cage, as you guys have seen in pet stores. And they're not used to that. We only do that for about a couple days just to kind of slowly transition them. They're usually housebroken, and they do best when they're out in our play runs that we have out in our store. And so that is something we're talking to the breeders about is, city life is a lot different than country life. And we need them to, put the adult dogs into some smaller cages for traveling and just so that they can get used to that. We were really big on the outdoor play areas. Well, as you know, we have snow, we have bad weather. And so the indoor play areas are super important. And so we're really starting to work towards more of those different textures, different toys, and being exposed just to different things that, the puppies are going to be exposed to in their new homes. Training has become really important, and, teaching the adult dogs and training the adult dogs. And there again, so they make a better rehomed dog. Also, we're doing a lot more training in store and educating the customers. That's a big role that pet stores really play. My dad has always kind of said the breeders need to be in their facilities taking care of the animals and worrying about neonatal and all of those different things. And we need to be educating the customer. And it really takes real quick, I remember one time 12 years old walking over to the pet store because my grandma worked for us. And grandma talking to this lady on the phone saying, when was the last time you gave the dog water? Did you give the dog water? So now we have a hospitalized puppy that's dehydrated. And she kept, she started screaming at this lady, H2O, H2O. Well, I didn't even know what H2O was at that point. And I remember saying, Grandma, why were you screaming H2O at that lady? And she's like, because the lady wasn't giving the dog water. So the lady told us, you told me to feed the dog, but you didn't tell me to water the dog. So it really goes to just show you how naive people are. They're not stupid, they're naive. And the pet stores really play a huge role because we can hold those customers' hands and we can walk them through. We do follow-up calls on our puppies after we sell our puppies. We offer health warranties to our puppies. Go back one more there, John. I just wanted to point this out. We often get that question, oh, you sell dogs for so much and they're so expensive. But I wanted to show you some of the direct costs that we have here. We're paying more for puppies because if we're not paying the breeders what they need, how can we expect them to raise these adult dogs and invest into their facilities like they should? Delivery and transport, care while in the store. Of course, we have payroll costs and things like that. So that just kind of shows you a little bit. I mean, just to give you guys a little idea, I have a mall store in the mall, and I pay $540,000 a year in rent for 4,000 square feet. So the costs are really quite expensive. Then we also add a lot of value with our puppies when we sell our puppies. We're selling them with, I require it in my store. It's not an option. You have to leave with a kennel. You have to leave with toys and treats, high quality puppy food. Health warranty. We're required to give medical information, up-to-date vaccinations and dewormings. We require all of our pets to do a first vet exam with a veterinarian, so we know that they're getting the ongoing vet care that they need. All of our puppies are microchipped. And I know that I was asked that just yesterday. Well, what happens, or do you really care about where these dogs go to? And how do you know that these dogs are in a forever home? Brian from Petland was sharing with me, it's less than 1%. Now that we're microchipping, we can really track this. And they did a lot of work putting some data together. And it's like less than 1% of puppies out of pet stores are in a shelter or rescue type of facility. And often when they are, it's because they're being reunited with their family. Like I said, we're offering, most stores that I have spoken to and met with are offering puppy training classes, because we know that that's the number one reason why dogs are rehomed, is because of behavioral reasons. All right, I think I'm going to let Marty take over from here. Is that the correct spot?
I think so. Yeah. So I work with breeders of all varieties. I work with Amish breeders in the larger states where Amish breeders are present. I work with breeders in my practice of all levels. So we see a little bit of everything, and I want to be sure that we understand that the Amish should not be a demonized group. Some of them are starting to show their dogs, compete with their dogs, and they're beating some of us. Yay. Good for them, because they are starting to pay attention to what Stacy Mason and the other people at AKC have done. Is they're going into kennels and they're starting to help point out dogs that are quality dogs, the dogs that they should be using in breeding programs for confirmation. So it's actually pretty exciting to see those kinds of things happen. When I do speak to the Amish, it is kind of an enlightening opportunity. My first engagement with the Amish, I was a little concerned about it. I wasn't quite sure. And so I was in the Yoder Hall waiting to speak. And I said to them, you do have electricity to run my projector, right? Because I had a computer with a backup for the battery, but I didn't have a way to run the projector. They go, oh yeah, we've got a generator, no problem. And I said, well, how late can I speak? And they said 8:30 as he looks out the window over his shoulder. I'm like, yeah, that's when it gets dark. So they had to get home in their buggies before it got too dark to travel home. And so it was a little worried about it. So the first people that came into the room, it was a gentleman and his son. And I said to him, so tell me about your business model, because I was really trying to understand him. And he said, I work in the RV industry and I only work 40 hours a week. And I only have 5 acres. So my family, my children and my family, and I raised puppies. I'm like, I only work 40 hours a week. If I ask my staff to work more than 30 hours a week, they believe that I have ruined their life, that they have nothing left. So, and it's really interesting as well, because when I speak, they don't start rustling papers and getting ready to leave when it's 15 minutes before the presentation is over. They would stay if I talked for an extra 2 hours. They would stay. And I don't think it's simply because they're afraid to leave the room. I think it's because they want the information. So I speak to a lot of these organizations all over the country, mostly in the Midwest, but all over the country. And I literally am their Dr. Google. I know lots of people joke around about Dr. Google, but I seriously am their Dr. Google because they don't have resources. They might have a cell phone. I do have one client that's been sending me some photographs of his recent litters, but he has to do it with a flip phone. And they oftentimes have email, but they aren't looking things up online. They may just have email at work that they can do some communication. So when I say I am their Dr. Google, that is no joke. I truly am their Dr. Google. They're starting to do health screenings with support from Stacy Mason, from AKC, a lot of these organizations. So they're coming in with health certificates. We see eye exams, cardiac exams, orthopedic. There's veterinarians that travel around with their eye equipment, with their stethoscopes, with their ultrasound machines, with their x-ray machines. And so they're taking x-rays and doing all these kinds of health screenings. So it's a huge improvement because we are starting to see a lot of these breeders with the health screenings. These are some examples of what the health screenings look like. This is some more examples of what it looks like at these conferences. When I go to the Ohio Pet Breeders Association, any guess on how many people are at Ohio? Total people that attend? There's 2,000 people. 2,000 people. At Indiana, it's over 1,000, and there's 2 organizations in Indiana. So when we speak to people, we really are touching a lot of people and really having the opportunity to affect what they do. We've seen the kids come up and do presentations with their trained dogs. We've just seen a huge change in how things are happening. So they truly are listening to us. I had one gentleman who was a Missouri resident, and he's Amish, and he was having some difficulty with his breeding program. So he and his wife and his kids got in the white 15-passenger van and drove from Missouri to find me in Ohio. He didn't call me. He came to Ohio to meet with me. And he said to me, I'm having difficulty with my breeding program. My bitches aren't coming into season. And if they do come into season, they're not getting pregnant. And I need to have litters of puppies. So I spoke to him a little bit about nutrition, made some recommendations. He is now sending me pictures from his flip phone that he has 22 litters on the ground and is again successful, which is very, very fortunate for him because he was hurt in a pretty serious accident, cutting down a tree, and had some serious trauma. And without that source of income, he would not have been able to manage his finances. So it's really important. These are some pictures from some of the kennels we've been in. I would love to have a kennel of the quality that the breeders are facilitating. You can see that they have heated whelping nests in their runs, and you see the panel over on the far side. You see those digital readouts. That's the readout in the kennel office so that they can see what their puppy temperature whelping nests are at. And this is run on geothermal. So for those of you who think that the Amish can't do something technological, they're doing this on geothermal heat. It's pretty impressive. Some of their kennels, depending on where they are, their walls are Corian countertop. And I don't mean Formica. I mean Corian countertops. They have epoxy floors, Corian countertops, beautiful kennels, absolutely phenomenal. I would love to have kennels like this. This is a photograph of my number one client in our practice's home. This is their outbuilding, so the man cave, and then the home is back here. You can see their pool. They have doubled the size of this facility. It doesn't show in this picture. They've doubled it. It's a log home, and the dogs live in the home with them, or they're in guardian homes. So they have this phenomenal facility. He added $1 million addition onto the home. It's absolutely a work of art. It's absolutely tremendous to see. So it's pretty impressive. And what I want some of you to think about is the level of care that these people are required to have is exceeding some of the care that our clients choose for their own pets. We see people that are afraid to do dental cleanings, reluctant to spend the money on it, and we're requiring a higher level of care for the dogs in these facilities, which is great, but it's starting to worry me a little bit that we're going to have some clients that are fearful of coming in, because if we start mandating dental care and those kinds of care for the people in these breeding facilities, that we're going to start mandating care like that for our pet people, and those people may be forced into not coming in because they're afraid of having their dogs legally required to have those things. So we have to be really careful what we wish for when it comes to legislation, and I'm going to hand this back off to you at this point.